Well, welcome everybody. Happy New Year. It's 1:02. The count is rolling around. We'll see if does anybody want to chat about anything? Tell me about your Christmas or your New Year's. Thanks for being here, Frida. And Cindy, I read that you're back in Billings. Maybe we will meet if you're at Natural Grocers, and they're about every 5 days, it seems like. And I do meet a lot of people at Natural Grocers. Leah, thanks for being here. Renee, nice to see you. I hope you're doing well. I just was watching you on Instagram last night. Okay. Well, I think we'll get started. So some of you maybe know who I am. Some of you I definitely know. Some of you might be new or at least new to seeing me live. So I'm Tracy Konoske. It sounds like cannot ski, but meet you at Natural Grocers. I don't know, can you guys all see the comments? You should be able to, but you know, sometimes in Zoom when I'm on other people's feeds, sometimes I can't see all the comments. Okay, so Tracy Konoske, Master's in Nutrition, Bastyr University, which is, back when I went, which is almost 20 years ago now, it was one of the only schools in the US where you could do a food-based nutrition program. I suppose there are more now, but I don't know that for sure. So I had been in a car wreck, got really sick, and started to see a naturopath, and she said, you need to change your diet. And I didn't even know what that was. Honestly, I mean, that's hard to imagine now, right? But she was like, you need to eat more fruits and vegetables and beans. And all I really knew was Whoppers. I was 24, and I was raised well on good food, but I really didn't know anything about that as a single 24-year-old. So I changed careers, went back to school, got my master's in nutrition, did my internship at Bastyr. And so I have a background in natural medicine. Then I did all the courses through Institute for Functional Medicine. And then 2 years ago, I got diagnosed with chronic Lyme. And that was a big thing. And there aren't really any answers for Lyme. So I had to work through all of that. And it's just been a couple of years. And here we are, right? Hi, Amy Bachelor. Nice to see you. And Lisa Martin. It says just. Okay, so that's the intro. If I think of anything else, I'll tell you. So the first thing that I want you to know in terms of an action step, can see comments, picture. I'm sorry, we have really good internet. I pay for who knows what. I mean, whatever a big plan is for internet. So I don't know if it has to do with the weather. It's very sunny, but our internet location requires a visual sight to the tower. And so if there's snow, and Johnny's out cleaning all the snow off the roof because we have so much snow, like a foot in a day and a half. So it's just piled up, you know, like this deep on the roof, and that's where our dish is. Okay, so the very first thing you need to know if you're struggling with anything is that you can heal. Our body, just like if you cut your finger and you know, it seals back up and we fight off infections as long as it's not overwhelming, our body does the exact same thing with everything. So in my life, ever since I changed my diet to a plant-based diet, just in the last 2 years, my vision has improved. So I need a weaker prescription for my eyes. I've been off my thyroid medication for a year. All kinds of chronic pain that I used to have has disappeared or is disappearing. It's pretty profound, and it's really it's been a big eye-opener for me. So the things you're going to hear about today are the things that I do. It's the things I recommend to my patients. It's a brief little thing, right? But it's a start. So you definitely need to know that you can heal. If you don't believe that, if you've been told you have an autoimmune disease or you have chronic Lyme, or you know that you have COPD or cataracts or glaucoma or fibroids, polycystic ovary disease, I mean, you can ask me in the chat section about just about anything, but I now believe I know how to help people heal, and it's all the God information that came along. So that's another story, but know that you can heal. If you need help with this, you can watch the documentary Heal, which just came out. You can go to Amazon and you can purchase it for $7.99 and own it forever. You can buy a higher quality if you're going to watch it on a big screen for $12.99, but you can buy the documentary Heal. It's about the mind-body connection. And if you just start repeating to yourself every day, I can heal, our body will create chemicals to match what our brain is thinking. And if you think, oh, I'm going to be sick forever, there are no answers, I have COPD and I just, I'm going to be sick for the rest of my life and I'm not going to be able to breathe and I'm going to suffocate to death, guess what? I mean, it's just like Henry Ford says, if you think you can, you can. And if you think you can't, then you can't. I mean, it's really true. We really need to believe that we are, in my opinion, created by God. We are infused with His Spirit and His energy, and we can tap into that. And He created us that our body can heal. He didn't create us that our body can attack itself. So really, think about that. You can look up Dr. Kelly Turner. She is now a PhD. When she was doing her doctorate, she was interviewing people who had a, quote, spontaneous remission from cancer. And what she realized is that these people were had a lot of positive thoughts. They were watching sunsets. They were thinking positive things. Yes, they changed their diet. Yes, they might have started juicing. Yes, they might have started doing IV vitamin C. But I believe it was 12 of the 14 things people were doing were just about the way they thought. And this is also stuff that Dr. Bruce Lipton can teach you about. So there's definitely a lot of information out there. You can find people on Facebook to follow, like Chris Beat Cancer, Chris Carr. You can heal. You just can. Your body was created that way. We just need to get out of the way. Okay, so that's number one. Action step number one is you really have to believe this. You can't, you can, but it will be more powerful if you go into this understanding in your soul the truth that there are things that cause disease, and likewise there are things that can unwind the disease process. So number two is hydration. And so most of us are chronically dehydrated. If you think, I want you to think about what you're drinking. Are you drinking coffee, energy drinks? Are you drinking even herbal tea, which isn't necessarily hydrating on a cellular level? It's great for you. I don't mean that, but the things that are most hydrating are going to be like fresh live juices, water with citrus in it. So it could be grapefruit, orange, lemon, or lime. But those are very hydrating. And again, fresh juices and eating fresh fruits and vegetables is really hydrating. So, so the action step here is to, in the morning, this is what Johnny and I do. For just me, I fill up 3 quarts of lemon or lime water in the morning, like the glass ball canning jars, and we have one of those squeezers, and I put either a half or a whole, like a half a lemon or a whole lime into each quart, and I set them up on the bar in the kitchen, and one of them I'm going to drink right away first thing when I get up, because what you need to do first thing out of bed is to flush all the stuff out that your liver's been processing overnight. So we want to take the trash not just to the back door, we want to take the trash all the way out to the curb, right? So if you just wake up in the morning and the very first thing you do is to drink a quart of lemon, lime, orange, or grapefruit water, you're helping to flush out those toxins that your liver processed overnight. And then you're going to want to drink another quart of water in the afternoon and another quart of water early evening, somewhere before bedtime, obviously. And yes, you might have to get up in the middle of the night to go pee, but that's okay. Remember, we want the trash to go all the way out to the curb, not just to the back door. So that's really important. That's a way to stay hydrated. And so you're flushing your liver, your lymphatic system, your kidneys, and you're going to notice a difference in how you feel. If you have migraines, if you've got fatigue, if you have constipation, I mean, there are lots of reasons to hydrate. It sounds really basic, right? And I hope you don't leave here today just thinking, oh, Tracy told us the same old stuff, because it matters. You don't have to spend a lot of money to get well. I mean, it can cost a lot, right? But you can do some really simple things that can make a difference. Okay, the third thing I want to talk about today is pathogens. So what I learned after I was diagnosed with chronic Lyme is that pathogens play a huge role. And when you really step back, what you realize is that it means your immune system isn't that strong. So you need things like zinc, vitamin C. You're probably going to need some herbs to take care of the pathogens, maybe some supplements. Today isn't about that, but just understanding that pathogens play a role in everything, like I said, from endometriosis to the chronic Lyme to cancer to chronic pain. Did I say that? I mean, it's a pretty endless list, and it takes a lot of studying to get to a place where you can just look at somebody's intake form and say, oh, okay, you've got some pathogens going on here. 90 to 95% of us, maybe even more, have a herpetic virus called Epstein-Barr or in that family, where okay, so there's over 60 varieties of Epstein-Barr, 31 varieties of shingles, 10 or 12 varieties of the HSV6. And they're all in the family of what's called the herpetic viruses. And they've been mutating and changing, and they don't live in the bloodstream. So they're not easy to capture in a blood test. We can tell if you have had a past infection, but again, if you just go backwards, 90 to 95, maybe more percent of us carry these viruses. And so I just assume now that they're part of a patient's treatment plan. So, so what I want to talk about for the third action step is foods to take out to stop feeding the pathogens. This is a shorter list. I have a recorded version of this with the whole, on my website is a downloadable MP3 that has 12 action steps to take out, to help people heal. There's even more than that, right? Like I could have 20, I could have 50. I think I could do Facebook Lives all year long on things you could do to improve your health in these action steps. And we will be doing more Facebook Lives, or I will be. But so today, what I want to talk about is just what to take out in order to stop feeding the pathogens. So gluten is a big one. I think a lot of people are aware that, you know, gluten is a trigger. It actually feeds pathogens. That's how we get the inflammation. So one of the things out there is that, you know, gluten feeds inflammation, but the piece that's missing in all of that is gluten actually feeds the pathogens, and the pathogens are creating the byproducts, the debris, the toxins that create the inflammation, okay? So taking gluten out is the first big step. Taking all grains out is actually a better step, because not only are dealing with with viruses, we are dealing with bacteria like Streptococcus, which has mutated beyond our ability to capture it in a test. And so, so taking out all grains would remove the fuel for viruses and for bacteria. We also want to take out dairy, huge. And I know dairy is really popular. I know it tastes great. I know there's becoming more substitutes for dairy, but in the past, let's say 10 or 20 years, I mean, I was taught at Bastyr not to eat dairy products. And that's a hard place to be in our society, where the whole world wants to go out and, you know, go for pizza, go for burgers, everything comes with cheese on it. But dairy has hormones in it that were meant for that calf to grow, for example. So Johnny and I have cows, and every spring we have calves, and the milk that mom produces, even though all of our cows are pasture raised, they're grass fed, they don't get any grains, there's hormones in that milk that feed the pathogens. And so it's really important to be dairy free. And the same thing is true for eggs. Eggs didn't start out this way. Eggs were meant for people. But what has happened is that we, the scientists, have given pathogens eggs as a food source in the laboratory when they're studying them. So the pathogens have learned to eat eggs. So again, even if your eggs are free range, from free-range chickens, pasture-raised, you know, the best eggs in the world, they still have hormones in them. And those hormones are feeding the pathogens. So again, it's really important to be dairy-free, egg-free, if you have any sort of chronic condition. So we did gluten and grains, we did dairy, we did eggs. Corn is important to leave out. Huge genetically modified crop, and corn also has the ability to feed pathogens like viruses and bacteria. So it's important to keep corn out. There are other options like Simple Mills and Siete are two brands that make crackers and chips, and they're made out of coconut flour and almond flour. So if you can eat those, those are both substitutes, where you can, oops, where you can, still have a cracker if you want to. And they're making all kinds of vegan cheeses. I just bought one the other day from, I don't know if I can think of the name of it, but it's almost like a cream cheese, comes in a little tub, and you can dip crackers into it. We had some of that over Christmas, and it's made out of cashews. Okay, so we want to take all the foods out that feed pathogens. That was your action step number 3. And hi to Amber, hi to Kirsten, nice to see you both. And okay, action step number 4, we're really whizzing along here, is that fruit has the most antioxidants of any food group on the planet, more than vegetables, more than leafy greens. And I know it's very popular, but I promise you that, what I've learned over the last couple of years is that if you're leaving fruit out of your diet, you're going to age faster. So I said in the beginning that my vision is getting better. I've been off my thyroid meds for a year. Moving to a plant-based diet, which needs to include fruit, because those calories have to come from somewhere, right? We can't just eat salad all day. Like, that's never going to work. So you need to eat fruit. You need to eat potatoes and sweet potatoes. We're going to talk about those. Renee wants to know the brand of the crackers. Simple Mills makes a cracker. They make a couple different kinds of crackers. They make a dough that you can do for a grain-free, like pizza dough, a grain-free cupcake, a grain-free pancake. You can also find all of those just recipes to make like grain-free pancakes, but they make it easy. They're not cheap. The Simple Mills stuff is about $7 or $8 a box, and you can get them on Amazon for, let's say, $24 for 3 boxes. So there's definitely a special occasion. We've had the pancakes once when we had company, and it was totally gobbled up. And the box recipe calls for eggs, and we put in aquafaba, which is the juice off of garbanzo beans. So what I do is, if we open a big can of garbanzo beans or a white bean to put like in a chili or to make hummus or something with, I save it and I put it in the ice cube tray and make ice cubes, put it in the freezer, and then I can take out, let's say, 3 large ice cubes to equal, let's say, 2 eggs. You can rough it. I've heard people saying that they use mashed banana, that will work too. But definitely you have to find some ways to substitute the egg. So we've made the cupcakes once or twice, the pancakes once, the pizza dough you can make into dinner rolls, and I've made that a couple times. And then you buy the crackers just pre-bought, and they're great, but kind of high fat and kind of addicting, so be careful. Okay, so we were talking about fruit has the most antioxidants, and if you're going to eat less meat, be more plant-based, then you're going to need to eat fruit and you're going to need to eat potatoes. So fruit has the most antioxidants of any food on the planet, or food group. And I think it's important to get variety. Hi, Roxanne. That's where we buy our raw honey. And okay, so lots of fruit. So for us, Johnny and I each have our own container for the Vitamix. And in that container, we put a cup of wild blueberries and then a variety of other fruit. And in our freezer upstairs are all kinds of fruits, like cranberries, frozen Meridol papaya, mixed fruit, strawberries, dark sweet cherries. Costco has dark sweet cherries, and those are divine. And so our staple is to have, we each have our own fruit smoothie in the morning, and then a few bananas go in there. I usually have 2 bananas. Johnny can have 5 or 6 bananas. We put a couple dates in there, lots of powders. It's kind of an event, but that's breakfast, and it's really part of what is, I think, keeping us young and getting healthier all the time. So I said earlier, and there's still people coming on, so I've been off my thyroid meds a year. After being on them for 26 years, no less. I was put on them after that car wreck when I was 24, and that was at the beginning of our Facebook Live. So after this car wreck at 24 is when I needed glasses, and is when I was put on thyroid meds, and my health really deteriorated after that car wreck. And so that's when I went back to school, got my master's in nutrition, and ate plant-based for a while. And then there's so much research about, eating fat, that Johnny and I ate a ton of fat. We were very paleo, very little fruit, lots and lots of fat, lots and lots of pork. We were buying, free-range grass-fed pork. And that's when I got sick. And I don't think it was just diet. I think it was diet. I think it was stress. We had refinished our hardwood floors, and the toxins, we had not planned for it to be as toxic as it got, but we have an old reclaimed floor. And when we stripped it and put on the new stuff that was supposed to be great, it interacted with what was already in the wood, and it created a big mess, and we had to strip it all off and put a sealer on there. And the sealer was so toxic. I would leave the house and go to work for the day, but we were sleeping here. And again, it's always like the perfect storm, right? Sorry, it's easy to do that when it's right there. So that's when I got sick, and changing my diet to a really plant-based diet has definitely been a big, huge part, along with all the other things I've done. So let's see. Brenda Mack says, can't have fruit with candida. I would disagree. I've seen it in lab reports. I remember one woman specifically, Leah, that was from in the Montana area up the road. She had a +3 on a candida stool test. She also got diagnosed celiac while I was working with her. This was probably 5 years ago. And not this Leah. And I just put her on a whole foods diet, and her candida came crashing down. And there is information that candida is actually protective, and it means that you have other pathogens going on in the gut. That's probably more than what we'll cover today, but I would definitely not give up fruit. I would work on eating more whole foods, and if you need to do a one-on-one with me, whoever, but I don't. I now disagree with that after what I've learned after been through the whole Lyme thing. Thanks, Scarlett, first time viewer, it says. Let me read what Leah says. Leah has ankylosing spondylitis. I can't afford expensive treatments, so I'm trying whatever. Leah, I would definitely take out the food. Okay, so sorry if you're not reading. Leah has ankylosing spondylitis, which is considered autoimmune. I started out the video by saying I no longer believe that the body is attacking itself. I believe there are pathogens involved. So yes to hydration, yes to whole foods, yes to take out those foods that we talked about, the gluten and grains, dairy, eggs, corn. Oh, I didn't say canola oil, and those would be critical. Eat meat once a day, and start eating more fruit. And I mean, if that's what you can afford to do right now, it will work. It will take longer than if we get to use herbs or supplements, but it has worked. I've watched people do it before I understood what was really happening. So I hope that helps. Okay, so action step number 5, and then we can still do more questions. So number 4 was eat more fruit, and number 5 is eat at least 5 servings of leafy greens a day. A cup is considered a serving, and we probably put, that probably sounds like a lot to some of you. Johnny and I probably put 2 to 3, and sometimes I'll put like 6 cups of spinach in that Vitamix container for my smoothie. Once it starts whizzing around, I can pull the top off easily, gently, and just keep stuffing spinach in there. And so it's really not that hard to get 5 servings of leafy greens. I know that a lot of people have goals for the new year of losing weight. If you want to lose weight, one of the things you can do is to eat way more leafy greens. So by leafy greens, I'm talking about kale, spinach, arugula, romaine, red leaf lettuce, green leaf lettuce, watercress, cilantro, parsley, mache. I've probably forgotten some, but any sort of leafy green like that. And I do think that there are places to spend organic. We buy a lot of organic, but sorry, I lost my train of thought. People are coming on and I'm trying to do 2 things. You can't really wash the pesticides and herbicides off of a leafy green. So, you want to really 99% of the time, unless there's a big snowstorm or something. I mean, we live out of town. I totally get it. But if you can, try to buy your spinach, parsley, cilantro, arugula, all that stuff organic, because there really isn't a good way to clean that off. Other things, like if you're buying oranges and money is a concern, those are the melons, those are the kind of things that you could buy and they're still going to have pesticide residue in them. That's impossible at this point. There's stuff coming out of the air. There's stuff in the water. You know, we have a well water. We still have a water filter. We use ditch water to do, you know, to water all the stuff for our cows. So the cows are eating water that is contaminated. I mean, that's just the nature of the beast these days. When I went to Bastille 20 years ago, we were taught to put people on a detox diet 4 times a year for a week. And today it's an everyday thing. It's like a revolving door where every single day you need to be thinking about how to sweat out toxins, how to do dry skin brushing, rebounding, drink certain teas, take certain supplements, do things to be moving the toxins out. So number 5, again, was to eat way more leafy greens. So again, so like spinach in your smoothie. There's a spinach soup recipe on my website that I got from Anthony William, and I revised it. His was a real savory soup, and Johnny doesn't care for garlic. And so anyway, my spinach soup is spinach, mangoes, the juice of an orange or sometimes a whole orange, some celery sticks, maybe 1 date, and sometimes an avocado, depending on what I'm doing for fat, or like a half of an avocado. And if I don't have a ripe avocado, sometimes I throw in just like a tablespoon of pine nuts to give it that creaminess. So so that's an option. Renee wants to know about not eating kale raw. Is that a concern? No, not for me, and I'm happy to juice kale. I don't love kale, but I buy at our Costco, I know they're all different, but at our Costco they sell it's called superfood greens or something, and it's kale, chard, and spinach, I believe. It's all organic. And what I do is I put that also in our smoothie every day, and it's baby kale. It's not as bitter. But so that way I get some kale, I get some Swiss chard that I wouldn't otherwise. We already eat a ton of spinach, so that works out. And then for my salad at night, I eat a pretty big bowl of lettuce, and my favorite lettuces are either butter leaf, which I didn't mention, or red and green leaf lettuces. And I put peas, shredded radishes, sprouts. I make a homemade dressings because you don't, again, canola oil is in everything. If you go to Whole Foods and eat off their hot food bar, full of canola oil, because it's cheap and a lot of people think it's healthy, but it's totally a junk oil. If you don't know that, definitely go research it. There's tons of stuff about canola oil being a junk oil. It's genetically modified. I know it comes organic. I'm telling you, there's better options like olive oil and coconut oil. Supplements. I don't know. Okay, so some basic supplements would be, and this is for me, I mean, everybody's going to be different, but some basic things, because of what I've been through, I take zinc every single day, and I take vitamin C every single day. I take B12 every single day, and I take a B12 that has adenylyl and methyl B12. On my website, there's a tab called something about supplements, and there's a link to the zinc I buy, the B12 I buy, and a link to Emerson Ecologics / Wellevate, and a pretty good list of a lot of the things that I buy from Emerson. So let's recap, and then you can type questions in. And this is 5. So there's a recording on my website under e-courses that is called 12 Action Steps, How to Improve Your Health. And I'll stick the link in. This wasn't a sales call, but I updated it because I was doing this. So today was 5 of action steps you can take. The recording that I just put the link in there is for 12 action steps. And I think I'm going to do 1 Facebook Live a month. The next one that I really want to do is about like body care products that are safe. So all the things I take, and I'll have them here, they'll be backwards because of the mirror image. But, you know, I've definitely spent several years looking into what's safe, because if you put it on your skin, it needs to be safe enough to eat it. So Kirsten Spain, thank you. I love you. Thank you for being here. Kirsten is one of my heroes. She's a colleague that also eats plant-based. Mary, Amy Bachelor. I'm sorry if I'm missing anybody. That's one of my colleagues in the plant-based world. Let me scroll back down. Okay, so let's go back through the action steps. We'll see if anything else comes through. We've already been on 35 minutes. It goes fast. Jill Brill, how are you? Happy New Year. It is, I know it's not fun to just hear me talk to people, but because when I'm on Facebook Live, I'm like, "Ah, whatever, but it is nice to see people here. You don't want to do this and nobody shows up, right? So action step number one is you need to know you can heal, and you can go watch the Heal documentary. You can look up Bruce Lipton. Dr. Kelly Turner ended up writing a book about 1,000 people she interviewed that had a, quote, spontaneous remission from cancer. It can be done. It's done all the time. The doctors just don't want you to know that. Number two was drink 3 quarts of citrus water a day, way more fresh fruits and vegetables, and fresh juices if you have a juicer. Number three was remove foods that feed pathogens, and so that was gluten and really all grains, even quinoa, millet. If you're dealing with a health condition, whether it's an injury or COPD or an autoimmune or whatever, really the grains aren't doing you any favors. They're great, right? I totally get it, but they're not doing you any favors in terms of your healing. So removing grains, taking out corn, dairy, eggs, canola oil. There's more, but again, this is why people are in 6-month packages. Fruit has the most antioxidants of any food group, and you are definitely not doing yourself any favors by taking fruit out. And number 5 was eating at least 5 servings of leafy greens. Hi, Jane. Nice to see you. How's the snow in Red Lodge? And hi, Mary. She's also a plant-based eater that I know. So I'm happy to take some more questions. We're about right on time. I was thinking like 30 to 40 minutes. It's so nice to have you guys here. So do I recommend a vegan diet or plant-heavy, mild paleo with no eggs? So that's Leah's question, and I'll tell you what I call myself, veganish. I would say I have some animal protein, and I don't mean dairy or eggs, animal meat, maybe once a week. For my plant-based colleagues online, it's because Johnny hunts. And so this year we have cow elk in the freezer and we raise our own grass-fed beef. So Leah and anybody else having the same question, I no longer think that we need animal food to get all the protein we need. I've studied all of that. It's taken me years. I get that if you're hearing this for the first time, that might not resonate with you, but too much protein is hard on the liver, the kidneys, osteoporosis, gallstones. Some of my colleagues could even jump in and tell you more about all the negative effects of too much protein. But we've kind of been brainwashed. I've had to do a lot of research about this. This doesn't come easy for me. I'll be the first to tell you that I have a lot of trust issues, and it doesn't, I can't just hear things and just go, oh, right. Like, I have to go to PubMed. I have to go back and look in the 1930s at what happened in the Depression and understand that we started making deals and putting meat in the lunchrooms because the farmers and ranchers were going broke, and that's what the USDA's job is to sell stuff, and it isn't necessarily for our benefit. And if you've ever been sick and studied any of this, you know that's true. So my answer is very, very plant-based, because those have the most healing properties. I often say to my patients, God told people to go to the garden. He told Adam and Eve, go to the garden. He didn't say go to the butcher. He said, go to the garden. And I've really taken that to heart. And my own healing has been nothing short of a miracle. I mean, nobody had the answers for chronic Lyme. And I gave up dairy, eggs. I was already grain free. I told you that we were on a high fat paleo diet. And so this was a pretty radical thing for me. And after going to a plant-based diet, even still with some meat though, Johnny came to me in 5 weeks and said, I don't think you're sick anymore. And I had taken a sabbatical from my work. I didn't look anything like I look today. I was stuck on the couch and I was too tired to do anything. And I said, I don't think I'm all better. And I wasn't ready to give up my sick label yet because I didn't want the world to come flying back at me again. And then in 7 weeks, I went to him and it made me cry, but I said, I'm really not sick anymore. Now, it's been a long journey, and I've certainly had 2 steps forward and 1 step back, and I've had days that I really wonder if what I'm doing is the right thing to do. But let me tell you a fun little story, because along the way, I wasn't sure that this was the right thing. And so I did a lot of fleecing. If you know the Bible, you know that that's Gideon, and he would fleece and ask God for direction. So I did my own fleece. I did lots of fleeces, but one of them that I'm happy to share is that I asked God, am I on the right track? And I said, I need some signs, physical signs of faith and trust that I'm doing the right thing. And I kid you not, that the next morning, Johnny called me into his office and said, I want you to read this. And again, I asked for signs about faith or trust so that I could have faith in what I was doing and trust what I was doing by moving to a plant-based diet. Johnny didn't know anything about this. The next morning, he called me into his office and he said, I want you to read this. And it was a little excerpt from the Jesus Calling book by Sarah Young. And it was all about faith and trust. And I was like, wow. That's, and then for 30 days, almost a month, and I kept asking, I needed a lot of reassurance. It wasn't like one little thing was going to, give me all the faith I needed. For 30 days, I got a sign about faith or trust almost every single day. One day I got two, and a couple days I didn't get any signs. One day, Johnny and I were out doing some fencing, and his phone beeped, and he handed it to me and he said, I don't have my glasses, I can't read this. And it was a kind of a text message beep. And I looked at it and it was a Bible verse about faith and trust. And I read it to him because he didn't have his glasses. So my signs came in all different ways. They came from emails, they came in my news feed. Roxanne says she also has found a plant-based eating, no eggs, no dairy, all whole foods. That's interesting because when we gave up our chickens, we gave them to Roxanne because she has a big organic farm, and I didn't know that you weren't eating any dairy or eggs, but it is powerful. And again, this is if you're sick. Like there are people out there eating eggs and dairy and gluten, and we all have a different constitution, people have different stress. Again, pathogens are opportunistic, but if you have a pathogen issue, then then you need to give up those foods. And really, I think optimal health. Also, when I first joined this movement, um, uh, I joined a Facebook group called, and it's not there anymore, it's changed, and I don't know if it's still worth belonging to, but it was called Raw Vegan Fruitarian for Life, and it was a Facebook group. There was 40,000 members, and it was all about being a raw vegan. And I have never really full-time been a raw vegan. I don't know if I ever plan to be a raw vegan. I'd love to. I don't know if I'm tough enough to do it, honestly, full-time with what we can get here in the markets and stuff. I just went raw vegan yesterday, and I'm going to do a month of it, in January. So I'm doing a lot of juices, smoothies, the spinach soup I talked about. But I joined the group. I hardly ever contributed or said anything, but I just watched people, and I watched the before and after stories of people who gave up, went to a raw vegan diet, lost 50 pounds, lost 100 pounds, had the flexibility that I would love to have. You know what I mean? Their hair was stronger. Now I can say that my hair is growing again. My nails are hard and strong. I can give you 100 things if I sat down and made a list of what's better on my plant-based veganish diet. But I think the first step is just to be open to the idea that we can be healthy on it, and that we're not going to get anemic as long as you eat enough leafy greens. If you want to bring in spirulina, barley grass juice powder, just eating a lot of greens and taking care of pathogens will take care of some of that anemia. Do I use a plant-based protein powder? Renee, I used to be afraid that I wouldn't get enough protein, and so for a while we did hemp protein powder in our smoothies. And then after enough time in that raw vegan group and just watching my plant-based colleagues, I just really came to peace with the fact that we get plenty of protein in our fruits and vegetables and leafy greens. If you do join the raw Facebook group, it's now called My Plant-Based Life. It's no longer, the gal running it is traveling so much she's not able to be full-time raw vegan anymore. So now it's just a plant-based, but in there, in the resources or the files, you can read a book, and it's called the 80-10-10, and it's the principles of 80% carbohydrate, again, not from donuts and chocolate cake, it's from fruit, sweet potatoes, winter squashes, those kinds of things. 10% protein, 10% fat. And that helped a lot. And again, this has been 2 years, over 2 years, and I've just really studied and studied and studied. I mean, I have thousands and thousands of hours into refiguring this out. I feel like I have another PhD. IFM felt like one PhD. And then, but eating that way, meaning very paleo, very high fat, ketogenic even, is part of when I got sick. And I have to look at that, you know. So I really have made a full circle from Bastyr, because at Bastyr I was a vegetarian. And then you go out in the world and all these things are popular, and you know there's people writing books, and I've made full circle back to a very plant-based diet. Roxanne said she went plant-based after, so the chickens maybe moved on. So what else? Now we're at 45 minutes, and so I'm still working. It's 2 o'clock here, not quite 2, but I'm still working on my smoothie. This is part of my smoothie. It looks pretty green. It's starting to probably oxidize a little, but this is the wild blueberries, 5 different kinds of fruit, lots of spinach, powders, fresh aloe that we buy and then freeze in little pieces. There's a lot of special stuff in here. Okay, I don't see anything coming through. That might mean you're shy. It might mean you don't have any questions. Some of you are probably just here for support. You already know the answers because you're you're online with me and we're all doing the same stuff. So okay, well, so we're going to be doing, we is me, Facebook Lives, powders. We do a lot of powders. Let's see, we do glutamine powder, we do barley grass juice powder, and we do spirulina, Hawaiian spirulina powder. Here they come. Michelle, any ideas how to incorporate this into our children's diet? So happy to have found you today. Thanks, Michelle. I hope you're doing well. Okay, so children's diet. Yes, I think the first thing you can do for kids is just start giving them more whole fresh fruit. So buy strawberries, buy blueberries, buy raspberries, finger foods, make them smoothies. They will take your container and not give it back. They're gonna want it. Just don't put a bunch of, it's easier to digest fruit when it's alone. So don't put your avocado in there. Don't put your coconut milk in there. Save those for later if you want to make a coconut curry, if you want to put avocado in your salad, but your fruit is going to be easier to digest if it's on its own. Jill Burrill. So Michelle, I hope that helped. Just start with lots of fruit and lots of vegetables and let them help you in the kitchen too. They can just help you cut squash if they're old enough, or to juice things, but if they're involved, they'll do better. And kids also love raw honey. So get some raw honey for your kids, Michelle, and just let them have a couple teaspoons a day, like 3 or 4. Jill, kids and supplements. I would give them probably the same zinc, Jill, that you know about, the Good State Ionic Zinc. I would give them less. It's by body weight. But I would give them the same brands, just a lot less dose. It's always by body weight. So if you figure out, you know, what an average adult would take, like a dropper full of B12 once a day, you could give a child, you know, if they're 50 pounds, maybe a third of that. You can always start with 1 drop of B12. You know, I have to be a little careful here about, you know, just carte blanche given, but it's always by body weight, and I wouldn't change the brands. I would just change the dose. How's that? Lisa Ann wants to know what we eat for dinner. So when I'm not raw vegan, dinner is going to be like a bed of salad, various kinds of greens, and then steamed potatoes. And what I like to do best is take Yukon Gold sweet potatoes, and if I can get them the purple sweet potatoes, and put all of those in a little medley in the steamer basket. And then I love to have steamed asparagus on the side. I love to have steamed or roasted cauliflower, spaghetti squash. We have a ton of squash because we have a massive garden in the summer, so we have a lot of winter squash. So that's kind of an average dinner. And then there's usually not a sauce. I mean, and one of my little food rules is to try to have something raw with my cooked stuff because of the hydration that we talked about. It's important to get those living foods. And so So that's where the salad comes in. And if it's the right season and our garden is blooming, then we would have cucumbers or tomatoes or something on top of that. And if not, just like salt, pepper, spices, rosemary, thyme. Rosemary is probably one of my favorites. Thyme is right up there. Um, Roxanne is encouraged. Oh, and so now as a raw vegan, let's just talk about that for a minute. So my day starts off with the lemon water, green juice, the smoothies. I'll snack on more fruits and vegetables. I'll drink more smoothies um, during the day. Last night was my first night in a while of raw vegan, and I had a banana and an orange at about 7 or 8. And then I feel like I ate something before bed. We still have some persimmons. They're going out of season here. Hi, Kim. We're just about to wrap up, but it's all stuff you probably know. But thanks for being here. So that's what dinner was, and Roxanne is glad that research led me here. Okay, what else? It's like the comments are on delay, and all of a sudden they come rolling in. I'll have some more smoothie and see if there's anything else. You're welcome, Jill Brill. I am happy that 26 people showed up. This is my first Facebook Live ever. I just about had a panic attack when I went to get on. I had put that I scheduled it, and then I couldn't figure out how to tap into where it was scheduled. Mark, let me catch that. So Mark is rejecting a lot of his food, especially starches, vegetables, potatoes, sweet potatoes. He has a lot of histamine issues and a bad case of SIBO. He sounds like one of my patients that I currently have, and you know who you are. So I would, if you just came on, I would go back and re-listen to this because we talked about hydration, eating more fruit. You need to cleanse the liver. A lot of this has to do with the liver. It can have to do with one certain variety of a herpetic virus can cause a lot of histamine issues. I would give up grains. I would definitely give up the foods that I talked about in I think it was number 3. Action step number 3 went through all the foods. Know that you can get those foods back. There is hope. This 5 action step may not be enough. If you want to schedule, you can. This isn't a sales call. There's lots of people getting good information in here, but you might need more specific help than what we just have here. There's an audio that that I put in. So today is 5 action steps. I have an audio already recorded that I just updated for the new year with all the latest information I have. So it has 12 action steps, and you may just need more one-on-one help. And it can be done. The gal that is on this call, there's a patient of mine on this call, and she came to me with a lot of similar issues, plus 100 other things, honestly, a lot of neurological stuff, but gut stuff. And when we had our 1-month follow-up, she already was able to get some of her foods back. So just know that you can. It's really important to understand that you can heal. Lisa will be, I hope to do one once a month. I send a newsletter once to twice a month. I'm hoping to do Facebook Lives on like the first Monday of each month. And the next one I plan to do is like on body care products. And I haven't outlined the whole year, but I like to do these. I like to teach. So Renee, thank you. Mark, thank you. Roxanne, do you find raw makes a big difference? Okay, so for me, let's get intimate, right? So I have always struggled with my weight my whole life. And then when I was getting sick or got sick, my weight was probably at an all-time high. When I switched to plant-based, I slowly lost weight without dieting just by switching to a plant-based diet. And then we redid my thyroid labs just because you're supposed to do them once a year. I have a naturopath, and my labs were great. And I came off my medicine. We retested a month later, and my labs were still great. And so I've stayed off my thyroid medication. But in the meantime, my weight crept up like 10 or 15 pounds. This was part of when I started asking for signs from God about am I on the right path? Am I really supposed to stay off my thyroid meds? Because as a nutritionist, the last thing I want to do is be 10 or 15 pounds over what I think is a good weight. And my clothes don't fit, and I had to go buy new jeans, and my face looks fatter, yada. I mean, it's tough. I totally get it. I do not like all that happening. But that's when I got all my signs that I was on the right path, and I just needed to stay the course. So for 30 days, I got signs about have faith, have trust. And so I've now been off my thyroid medicine a year. Going back to the initial question, does raw make a big difference? The weight comes off pretty well when I'm raw, but it's hard for me to stay raw. Yesterday was Sunday. We went to church. We went to Costco. We get what we can organic and what's safe conventionally. And then we go to the natural food store and get more organic. We don't have a lot of choices right now for what to eat. We have apples, oranges, grapefruit. In the summer, you have all the berries. We have our own garden. We have massive amount of cucumbers. I mean, it's a bloody fortune to eat raw for me in Montana in the middle of winter. And so yes, raw makes a big difference, but I don't always have the fortitude or the discipline to stay away from it, and it's not always financially feasible. But after the holidays, I feel super motivated to be raw for, I hope, the month of January. Johnny's super supportive, so that helps. And, I'd like by spring to be jogging and running again. I was getting pretty tough last year about this time, and then I got rear-ended in April, and I had to go back through the healing process all over again. Everything I had already done of all the juicing and all the supplements and everything to heal from the pathogen problem all came back. And so anyway, long story, but yeah, raw makes a big difference for me. And I should also say that in there I met with a medical intuitive who I didn't even want to talk to about thyroid. I just wanted to go back on the medicine and just, take the easy way out. And she wouldn't let me off the carpet. She was like hammered me for 30 of our 45 minutes about this was not my thyroid, this was my liver. I just needed to keep supporting my liver and doing all my liver therapies, and that the weight would resolve itself when my liver was finally in a better place. So again, that's when I asked for my signs, and I got them for 30 days. And that was enough to make me go, okay, I'll just keep doing this, even though it's uncomfortable and I don't love physically where I'm at. I feel better and better, and blah, blah, blah. So, okay. Do I have salads without dressing? Both, Lisa. So sometimes I put enough fruit on there that each bite is tasty. So it could be apples, pears, oranges. And sometimes I make a dressing, and the dressing might have fat and the dressing might not have fat. So without fat might be like salsa, like a red salsa, or a mango salsa, like mangoes, pineapple, jalapeno pepper, cilantro, red onion, that kind of stuff. It could be a red salsa. So those would be fat-free dressings for me. And a dressing with fat might be avocado based or tahini based would be examples of that. So I do all of it depending on where I'm at. Fat makes us feel good. And so when life is stressful, then, sometimes I do more fat than I know I really need. And I don't think it's all about the calories, in terms of the weight. I think it's just what the liver needs to go through. And I saw that time and time again in that Facebook forum I mentioned, where, if you stay low fat, vegan, or plant-based, the weight will take care of itself. You can, again, the group isn't as good as it used to be because the gal isn't raw vegan anymore. And a lot of the raw vegan people left when it changed to more of a vegan group instead of a raw vegan group. And the beauty of it was, again, it's easy to know how to cook beef or chicken. It's easy to know how to eat a salad, but it's not easy to figure out what to do for a salad dressing when you've never been vegan before. Yeah, Roxanne says thanks. Okay, well, we are at 58 minutes, and I think we did good. So thanks everybody for being here, and we'll see you next month. I will always schedule it. So you should get a notice in your Facebook feed if it's scheduled. While we're here, let me tell you that you can like my Tracy Konoske Healthy Lifestyles, and you can also follow it. And by going up to, I don't know how to show you while I'm on here, but under the same bar where you say liked, you can click the drop down and you can say follow. And that means you'll get a notification every time that that I do something. So somebody was mad in there. I hope you hit the wrong button. Roxanne, do you mean about going raw vegan or just even a lot more juicing maybe? Lauren, yes, the whole thing will be recorded and it will live on my Facebook channel. So as soon as I'm done, I think it converts the file and will put it in my under the videos of my Facebook. So thanks everybody for being here. Yep, Roxanne's going to go more raw. Good for you. You know, here's what I started out doing, Roxanne, is that I started out with raw breakfast. Tried to do raw lunch, but that was hard in the beginning. And then eventually I was able to do raw till 4, and then I would do that big salad with steamed potatoes and stuff. So even that is a huge improvement. But it's a transition, and your body knows it goes through some detoxification and some adjustment when you're doing that. So just know that this is a process over 2 years of getting to a place where I'm pretty happy to be raw. I just wish I lived where Amy Bachelor lives in California, where the food is plentiful. So thanks everybody. See you next time. God bless.